Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel here once again, and this is going to be another movie review. So, right off the bat, I cannot believe it's taken me this long to actually have my one and only Superman shirt in one of these Superman reviews. But I figured I'd save it for an occasion such as this one. And we are almost done with our look at the Superman movies. He's within the old school Superman series. He's the original Superman series, that is. But before we end things off, we have to take a step back a little bit. If you remember, and if my camera remembers to focus, that'd be nice. Thank you. If you remember back in Superman 2, some stuff happened, and more so behind the scenes. Where Richard Donner was out, Richard Lester was in, and they had to reshoot a bunch of the movie. They were about 75% done, but they had to fill that other 25%. But nope, this time around, Richard Donner's vision, at least for his take on the Man of Steel, is going to be fully realized here. This movie, as not just as the name would suggest, but even in the opening part of the movie, like the little preamble before the movie, he would suggest this is how Richard Donner's Superman was supposed to go, or at least his Superman 2 was supposed to go. So, here it is. Let's look at it and see does it hold up. I'm, of course, talking about Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. So, right at the bat, as always, I'm not a professional movie reviewer, analyst, or anything like that. Just a man who enjoys a good time, and I had a pretty good time, I'd say, for the most part, with this movie. How does it hold up to the original Superman 2? Although I can't really call it that because this technically is the original Superman 2, but the revised, I should say, official theatrical Superman 2 release. Let's find out. So this review, also, I do have to let you know, this review is going to be kind of weird because this is technically just Superman 2, Superman 2 we reviewed it a while ago. But the thing is as well, is that he reviewed it a while ago, but a lot of the stuff that was in that movie isn't in this movie, and a lot of stuff that wasn't in this movie is in this movie. This movie, I think, has tried its best to try to fill in some of those gaps and answer some of the questions that people have, but there are some things that will kind of contradict with the theatrical revised finished product of Superman and 2. So it's gonna be kind of weird. I'm gonna skim through the plot because for the most part, aside from one or two differences, it's mostly the same, and just with some differences, obviously, with the stuff that was cut out from the Richard Donner version. And this one was released in 2006, and I imagine this was strategically put there to coincide with the release of Superman Returns, because Superman Returns also came out in 2006. In fact, this one was released on November 28th, and I think Superman Returns came out earlier that year. Which of course, Superman Returns is our next and final stop. On the Superman journey. The Richard Donner cut was released in November 26th of 2006, and Superman Returns, if my browser would hurry up. That was released, I believe, earlier in 2006. So, kind of that cross promotion going, but I think it played out. Yep. So this was released in June. So I imagine and strategically put around the same time. But without further ado, I have rambled on long enough. Let's get right into the review. So, right off the bat, we do have the preamble. As I mentioned, kind of saying, this is how the Superman 2 was supposed to be released. This was Richard Donner's original vision, and not just with the footage they already had, but some test footage as well. I imagine for test audiences, for different screening audiences. This is how so that compiled to make a finished product of a movie. But then it also does give a tribute to Christopher Reeve, who had passed away in 2004, or so giving a tribute to him proving that a man truly can fly. He proved a man truly can fly, and you know what? He sure enough did, and that was like the major tagline for the movie is you will believe that a man can fly, and you know what? Yeah, they kind of got a point there. The flying effects for the other Superman movies were really, really solid. The later movies not as much, but without further ado, who continuing on so of course, General Zod, Ursa, and Nan, aka Zod's minions, they are imprisoned within the Phantom Zone. But this time, unlike the theatrical version of Superman 2 that we got, it was actually Superman's missile that he launched into space. He's via when he stopped Lex Luthor. Of course, if you remember in the first Superman movie, which if you've missed any of my previous reviews of the Superman movies, go check those out. But Superman, of course, stopped the missiles, launched the other one into space. Sadly, the second one hit, but he went back in time to reverse it, which technically shouldn't that mean that none of this should have happened, but not the last time something like that will happen in this movie. Oh no! So it's the missile and its impact that frees these Zod and his minions from their Phantom Zone prison. Meanwhile, Lois is back at the Daily Planet, and I am using the wiki for reference in case there's any points I missed. Plus, it leaves things nice and condensed. Lois is on to Clark, because Clark, Kent, and Superman aren't in the same place. And Clark and Superman kind of have that same overall facial structure. And I know a lot of people, the joke has been made, and I've referenced it in previous reviews. In fact, I think I also referenced it in my Superman 2 review. That had a lot of people say, oh, the one difference between Clark Kent and Superman is just the glasses. Which, not exactly, because Clark Kent, he's very nerdy, very dorky, he's very clumsy as well, kind of tripping all over the place. He's very much like that kind of boy next door, or kind of almost fish out of water, but because he came from Smallville, he'll head into the big city of Metropolis. But Lois, she's starting to put two and two together, and she takes to doodling Superman with it's kind of Clark's outfit, that being the suit, the tie, the hat, and the glasses. And she's like, that kind of looks like Superman, or that kind of looks like Clark. So she's confronting Superman about that, and she tries to prove it by leaping out of a window. Oh boy! So she leaps out the window. And asking Superman to save her, and so Clark, her slash Superman, naturally rushes out, uses super speed to run out. I think that's the first time we've actually seen him use that power, like being able to run super fast. I'm surprised it took them this long to have that power, but then again, this was the original release, this is what Superman 2 was supposed to be, so I imagine he would have used it earlier, but nevertheless, as he shows up and pretty much cushions her fall, not just with his like super breath, kind of like keeping her stabilized in the air, but then also kind of using his laser beam to open like one of the flats slash like tarps on the building so that Lois can fall safely into it, which he does in front of everybody and nobody notices. Okay, but so he saves Lois. That is there. She lands in a fruit stand, and she's like, oh, I guess he's not Superman after all. Also, if you remember in the other Superman 2, the theatrical release, the version we did wind up getting, and if you remember, she tried to prove it by jumping into Niagara Falls, jumping into Niagara Falls and trying to have Superman slash Clark save her. So I guess kind of the same idea, but the Falls one is a lot less extreme than this. Like her literally jumping out of the window. Yikes. But this will not be the last time that Lois tries to prove that Clark Kent is indeed Superman. But but nevertheless, Lois is saved. Abe, and then meanwhile, Lex Luthor does break out of prison. Otis and Lex try to help. Otis tries to help Lex escape. They do, the hologram and everything. So that, for the most part, is kept from the other version, and Lex escapes with Eve Tessmacher. But Otis is poor Otis is indeed left behind, and they find the Fortress of Solitude. They go in, they learn all of Superman's juicy secrets, except the one that's literally hiding under the glasses. But they learn about Jor-El and stuff like that, and just like the other movie, that is the last you see of Tessmacher in this movie. She does get an actual tidbit where the running joke is she has to use the bathroom, and she does indeed find the bathroom. So, and that's the last you hear her from within this entire movie. So I wonder what the deal was. I guess maybe they didn't want to bring her actor on for this movie. Maybe she didn't want to be in the other movie or have like a reduced role. Oh, it's just Lex for the time being. At least Otis, that one's kind of explained because he's still gonna be in prison. Yeah, but nevertheless, they find the Fortress of Solitude. Zod and his minions make his way to the moon first, and Lex also does learn of Zod through the crystals in the Fortress of Solitude, who does well as Jor-El explains everything. But yeah, so Zod and his minions, just like in the other movie, they take out the astronaut to make their way to Earth or to Houston, as they initially think it and of course they are powered by the yellow sun, as is Superman, and so meanwhile, and this does take place. It kind of goes back and forth, this plot, kind of goes back and forth, or some things are kind of out of order. But nevertheless, Perry White he tells Lois and Clark to pose as newlyweds so they can investigate a honeymoon suite scam within Niagara Falls. So Lois and Clark are going to be a couple and alone. I wonder if this will lead to any discoveries of any kind. But nevertheless, nevertheless, they head to Niagara Falls, and Lois still trying to prove it. She almost gets suspicious when she tries to clean Clark's glasses, then looks and like, hey, that kind of looks like Superman. and I'm surprised nobody else noticed. And Clark is making no effort to try to hide his face. He's like, he tries to stop Lois, like, no, it's okay. I can clean my glasses and stuff. But Lois is like, nah. But Lois does indeed take them off, cleans them, and looks and is like, kind of looks like Superman. So Superman goes off not Superman, Clark, or slash Superman. You get the idea. But Clark goes to get hot dog. Lois says she wants a hot dog, also with the orange juice, which makes even less sense in this version. Because at least with the other version, and Lois, they have the joke about the orange juice, Lois drinking a lot of orange juice, and Clark, juices one of the oranges. But here, I guess Lois just likes orange juice just because, I guess. Now, don't get me wrong, orange juice is pretty tasty, but it is kind of weird. But a kid is playing on the rail, falls into, is about to fall into the falls, but then Superman shows up, saves the boy, and Lois, continues who's trying to assume that Clark is Superman, and saying that at all the kids are potentially falling in the water, but the one boy that he and Clark Kent happen to be in the same place for, or Clark Kent slash Superman, and that one boy you happen to save, and it just so happens to be where he and you, talking to Clark Kent, are, or what about all the other children, which that's kind of a good point. But then Lois tries to prove it by pulling out a gun and shooting, trying to shoot Clark, and she does, so he reveals himself because now the jig is up, and he tries to say, if you were wrong, you would have killed Clark Kent, which is a very good point. Imagine Lois was wrong, she probably would have shot Clark dead, except the gun was loaded with blanks. And so he tricks Clark into revealing his identity. It's no, accidentally placing his hand into the fire, but he'll do, I guess. But holy crap! So they go to the Fortress of Solitude. They spend the time there, including Superman officially giving up his powers. And it's kind of weird here as well because, and I know. I'll get more into it later on, but he's already in like his regular, average, everyday people clothes, but then officially gives up his power. And Jor-El was trying to counsel him like, that's probably not a good idea. Like giving up your power to be with just her that's kind of I don't know about that. Which is weird because then in the other version of the movie, first of all, it's his mom counseling Clark, but then also. She's like, hey, if you want to be with her, you have to give up your powers. But Jor-El, he's having none of that. He's like, no, don't give up the powers. Don't do that. Don't step into the chamber, which has raised because you want to give up your powers. Or don't get rid of your powers. So naturally, Superman gives up his powers. So he gives up his powers to be with the one he loves. And meanwhile, Hosea and his minions, they're causing panic, causing havoc, just like in the other movie as well. They essentially take over not just the White House but the world. And they team up, with Lex Luthor to track down Superman. But at first, Clark still gets in the fight with the diner with the trucker and everything, who tries to hit on Lois, and sees the news bulletin, sees that Zod is out there, and Superman realizes, oh shoot, I done messed up because I don't have my powers no more. So he heads back to the Fortress of Solitude, and this time, I mean, I told you, and I mentioned filling in the gaps. This is the biggest gap that was filled in. And how did Superman get his powers back? Simple. He talked to Jor-El. Jor-El was like, hey, "Look, I know you messed up." But you know what? I'm going to give you your powers back. But the only thing is now Superman will have no more contact with Jor-El. So but Jor-El's like, here you go, giving you your powers back. So Jor-El comes out and he goes from a hologram to actually in there. So it's implied to be AI, not the cringy type of AI like we have modern days. I mean like it's sort of artificial intelligence in a way. But Jor-El gives Superman his powers back, and Superman shows up to fight Zod, and he fights and everything, and also I must mention that now the Force of Solitude is inoperable. Like I said, he can't have contact with Jor-El anymore. He's not able to communicate with either of his parents. Like the console is destroyed. Right, so no more like the. Essentially can't communicate, but so Superman does fight. He does on his minions and does lure them away. People think he's a coward running away again, but nope. So he flies off to the Fortress of Solitude, lures them there, and puts them away, tricks them again with the chamber. They think the Red Sun's on the inside, but nope, the Red Sun's on the outside. So Superman defeats Zod and his minions, and of course, Hex is there and pretty much helps lure them into the trap, unknowingly telling them about the chamber, so that Superman goes in, but the Red Sun's on the outside. So, essentially retooling the chamber. Superman drops Lois back off at home. And I imagine, and Lex wasn't dropped back off, and Superman does destroy the Fortress of Solitude. He laser beams it, hit and destroys it. So I'm guessing Lex was in there and probably died. But nevertheless, Superman drops Lois back off, saying her secret's safe for her. Oh yeah, it is, because it's time to rewind the clock again. Yeah, you remember when Superman went back in time and reversed time, reversed the Earth and everything, and in order to undo what happened when Lois was killed in the first movie. Yep, we're doing it again. And so Superman does it a second time, and Lois and Perry do have that like deja vu over what happened, and this time, and then Clark does go back to fight the truck driver. Now with the original Superman 2 movie, Clark went back to fight the truck driver because the truck driver was hitting on Lois, and that was in canon. That time, it wasn't reverse time. It was the memory erasing kiss that Superman just happened to have. So Clark does go back to fight the trucker because the trucker beat him up and bloodied him and stuff. But this time around with time reverse, this time the trucker technically didn't do anything to Clark. All right, this time Clark's just beating him up for no reason and saying the trucker's in his favorite spot, which Clark, that's not how you handle it. I do have, when I go to certain restaurants and stuff, I do have my favorite spots, but that's taken. I gotta find a different spot. I'm sorry, Clark. You can't have this a spot. I know the trucker technically was like a jerk to him and everything, but technically with time reverse, the trucker technically hasn't done anything to Superman. But nope, just beat him down, throw him in the thing, and onto the pinball machine, and hands the owner of the wad of cash, and flies off into the sunset. And that was the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. Now, going into what I liked and what I disliked. The thing is, I can't necessarily talk about like I told you this is gonna be kind of weird because we technically have already done Superman 2. The only difference would be what I liked and disliked about the changes made in the Richard Donner cut. So I guess we'll do that. What I like and dislike about some of those changes is some of those do fill in the gaps, such as how did Superman get his powers back, or what's a more reasonable explanation for how Zod and his minions got free. And I do like having the missile be the thing to free the Zod and his minions because he cut it ties Zod and Lex, although it's not really revisited, and it's kind of weird, it's not revisited, that technically Lex is the reason they escaped. It'd be kind of weird to go about explaining that, like how they come to that realization, but it is kind of weird in that regard, but it does try to explain explain some of the things away that were kind of missing, that kind of those like big holes in Superman 2. Ooh, and so I think it does a decent enough job in that regard. And seeing Richard Donner's vision for Superman, and seeing Superman, and trying to eschew a lot more of that comedy and go for more of that, what made the first movie so memorable and so good as well, I think is really cool as well. And especially Superman's moment where he's calling out to his father after he lost his powers. Superman really at the end of the rope. The fact that none of that is in the version of Superman 2 that we ultimately got in theaters and everything, I think that does suck. So it's nice to see it restored here. What I didn't like as much is that it's really he reversing time again, and you couldn't figure out a way to make it so that things didn't happen, and having kind of that tension there of Lois not knowing or knowing Superman's identity but not being able to say it. I think they probably could have built on that a little bit more, but nope, time travel again. And the thing is, you kind of have to look at this movie in a bubble, but some of the things that happen here would make some of the things that happen in later movies, it would make them kind of in plot hole territory. And that's why I think this one, and I get the feeling that had with this one, if this is the version of Superman 2 that we ultimately got in theaters, and if it was finished, if they didn't bring in the new director, if we did fully get Richard Donner's vision for Superman 2, I imagine either Superman 3 and 4, probably, and to an extent Supergirl, either those wouldn't have happened, or those would have looked a lot differently. But taking into account Superman 3 and 4, how they are, that's where junk, I think, gets a little weird. Where the plots and stuff do get a little bit weird, and do get kind of muddy. and with time being reversed, it means that Zod and his minions aren't freed from their prison and everything. But uh, I guess it does kind of make sense because the missile did come from Earth and Superman did reverse the Earth, but it's kind of weird. Or like the like the holes definitely are there, and I imagine you do kind of have to. That's why you kind of have to look at this within a bubble, for what it is, and I guess because this is second Superman movie, you kind of have to treat it like Superman 3 and 4 don't exist. Which Superman 4, I will take that. I will gladly take Superman 4 not really existing, but and Supergirl, but yeah, it is kind of weird. But Richard Donner's vision and how does it hold up? Do I think it's better or worse than the original Superman 2? Or not the original, but the version of Superman 2 that we got, the theatrical version. And the reason I'm kind of abstaining, and I kind of mentioned this at the beginning of the review, the reason I'm kind of abstaining from calling the theatrical version the original Superman 2 is because as that was the version that was revised, like when Richard Donner was taken out. That's the version they essentially had to finish up and wrap up and everything, where they had to had the other 25% because only 75% was done. But how does this movie compare to the theatrical version, the version we ended up getting? And like, does Richard Donner's original vision, the way he intended it, the way it was quote unquote supposed to be, how does it measure up to the theatrical version? Which do I prefer? Honestly, it it's kind of tricky. Like some things I think to truly analyze it, you kind of have to. You do really do have to pretend like Superman's 3 and 4 and Supergirl don't exist. It's like just in a bubble. Well, I think it's kind of tricky because there are some things that are taken out from the theatrical version, and there's some things that are added here that weren't in the theatrical version that do go on to explain but not everything from the theatrical version was bad. Had like following up on the orange juice and everything. I think he kind of an interesting concept, like that being kind of a running gag instead of it being more out of nowhere, or or as goofy as the memory erasing kiss is, at least it's not the exact same ending as like the original movie where Superman's going back in time, and I guess it's implied that if Superman just wants to fix stuff, just go back in time. The one of the things that he's told not to do, and but the things that are added in this version, or I guess the things that would have been taken away in the theatrical version, such as showing more Superman's struggle with himself and wanting to let go of his powers to be with the woman he loves, and how he redeems himself and gets the powers back. I think it's interesting in that regard. It also doesn't have him showing up to the president, like, apologizing and be like, I abandoned my responsibilities, I won't do it again. But it does still show Superman wasn't listening and was busy with his grandstanding and his hot dogging of Lois Lane, that is which ended up costing him. But it's interesting. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And honestly, this is still really cool. It's also about 10 or so minutes shorter than the theatrical version as well. But it is cool that they were able to essentially fulfill Richard Donner's grand vision, and in time to coincide with the Superman Returns movie. But otherwise, I think this one's okay. Hey, this one's pretty good for the most part. Or whether or not it measures up to the theatrical version, in some areas I think it surpasses it. Other areas I think it does kind of fall short. But it is nice that we do have both versions so that we're able to compare and contrast. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think in the comments below? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video you can see it drops. Let me know in the comments which version of Superman 2 do you prefer. Do you prefer, if you've seen the Richard Donner cut, do you prefer it to the original? Do you think this is the version we should have got? Please let me know in the comments. But thank you all so much for watching. We got one more stop on our Superman journey as we next time we do the Superman reviews, as we are going to be looking at Superman Returns. But nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.